Please stand. I'd like to introduce Father Steve McCarty to offer the prayer for today. Thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in here. Also, I'm the priest of the St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Clear Spring. As you can understand, we're going through a tough time with events of the last week, but also in this community as well, with close friends and people who have served this community. I'd just like to mention them briefly. Deputy Fire Marshal John Chris from Hagerstown served this city, and also a volunteer in our community, Robert Bob Gearhart, who served for many years at Halfway Volunteer Fire Department, has passed. But our community, Clear Spring, has suffered a loss. It's not the first time in the many years that we've lost young people to car crashes, but this week has been tough with three young boys, TJ, Clayton, Cannon, and our community is hurting at this time. And there's things, and you read this in the paper as well. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. As we, before we get into prayer, I do have a prayer I want to say more specific for you, the county commissioners, but just continue to keep these families in our community, keep them in your hearts and your mind, and I know that many people are out there doing that now. We've shared many prayers and hugs. We did this past Friday on the football field at Clear Spring, and it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. So let us pray. Almighty God, we come to you in this community, Washington County, which is an amazing community in your creation. And we give so much thanks for those who step up and serve this community. Send down upon these elected officials who hold public office here in Washington County, Maryland, the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may continue to serve this community in all aspects. May the decisions that will be made at this meeting and future meetings and the concerns that will be discussed promote the well-being of all the people of Washington County. And this we pray in his most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. And now, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call our meeting order today. Thank you to Father McCarty for his words and his blessing during this time of healing and tragedy in our community. I'd like to call for the approval of our minutes for August 16th, 2022.
Motion to approve. Second.
First and second. Any other additions, subtractions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you very much. I did forget to mention Mr. Baker is running a little late, so we will anticipate his arrival soon. Next, we have commissioners' reports and comments. Excuse me. Oh, 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I missed the June 28th approval, too. I saw now that there's 2 sets of minutes to approve. Are everybody here?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. First motion was for August 16th. Second motion is for June 28th. Revised, as you have noted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we'll go to commissioner reports and comments. Commissioner Kiefer, would you start?
Well, as Father McCarty said, just my deep sympathies to the families who lost loved ones this past week. The tragedy and that happened with the families in Clear Spring. I'm familiar with one of the families, and just my sympathies to that community, the teachers, the friends at school, and of course the families. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Burkett.
Just a couple things this morning. Also would like to just say prayers to the families of the young people who were killed on I-81. There are a lot of people lifting these families up in prayer. I've been doing a lot of running around in August and have not been able to make it to a number of local functions, and so I just wanted to thank the Business Development Department for making sure all these businesses receive a proper welcome to Washington County. This department also represented Washington County well at the Summer Mako Conference again this year, showcasing many of the goodies from our local area, including some local apple butter, which I ended up getting a jar of that, and it was very good. I can't remember the farm that it was brought from off the top of my head, but anyway. And as I just mentioned 2 weeks ago, after our meeting, I left for Ocean City for the Summer Mako Conference, where I attended several classes, including completing all but one of the courses I needed to graduate from the University of Maryland's Excellence in Government program. And honestly, I feel that that should be a program that all commissioners that come on should take. It's a nice program to complete. You get a certificate at the end. I believe Commissioner Kiefer finished his this past summer, and he'll be getting a certificate this year. I did find out that I can continue, or I can go ahead and finish that last course to receive that certificate. Next item that I just wanted to mention real quick is last meeting we discussed the surplus, and we'll be addressing it again today. And during that discussion, I brought up the Commission on Aging's Meals on Wheels program. And I know today we're going to be making a mention of some of that surplus today, maybe even making a decision on some of that. And I was going to invite the commission here at our next meeting, but they showed up today, and I hope you're going to make some comments today. I think the Meals on Wheels program is an important program, and as I said at our last meeting, with a $37 million surplus so far, there's no reason why we can't feed this vulnerable population, at least for the next year. And then finally, we all received an email from a citizen a couple months ago, a Miss Sanchez, an elderly lady who expressed concern about a tree on her property. Her concern was that the tree was actually the county's to take care of, and so I reached out to the director, to Director Eshelman, who found that the tree is actually on her property by a small measurement. The problem is Ms. Sanchez expressed concern that with her limited income, she's not able to afford the $7,500 that a local contractor was going to charge her. Recently, we all received another email from a senator's office asking for help for the citizen. I'm sure that the county could probably remove this tree at a little less cost than what that contractor was quoting, and would like to request that under the extenuating circumstances that we help this citizen with our fund that we, the commissioners, have, that $100,000. I'm sure we could probably do this job for a lot less than what our contingency fund, less than what the contractor was going to charge. Maybe even just leave the wood sit there on her property, but at least get that tree down so it's not going to fall in the road or fall on her house. And so I don't know if there's any action we can take today to help her, but I think that's an important thing that we could help with.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Good morning. Wanted to thank Father McCarty for those kind words and words of healing. It's been a rough couple weeks, obviously. Our 4 families in Clear Spring, our 3 teenagers, our first responders. I mean, we've lost Dave Hayes' dad, Mr. Gearhart, Mr. Christ, who had his services out at HCC this week. So my heart and prayers go out to all the people involved in what these last couple weeks have happened. Wanted to welcome our veterans. We got a couple veterans there. They're going to speak here in a minute. I want to welcome you guys for being here. What else happened? Attended a Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics, which is PIA. They graduated eight students here a week or so ago. And the good news was all 8 students already had jobs before they walked out of there. So their placement, there's a high demand for our aircraft mechanics. So they did well by all having fairly well-paying jobs too. I think I forget how much they get paid, but it's
60, I think there's.
yeah, something like that,
salary.
50, 60,000 a year to start. So it's a 16-month course. I think it's cost about 30 grand to go there. A lot of fundraisers this past week or two. You had Morgansville, you had the Great Duck Race at Funkstown. The AMVETs are veterans. I'm sure one of you guys probably belong to the AMVETs or did at one upon a time. They had a barbecue, so we try to support our vets. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Again, thank you to Father McCarty for his words today and mentioning the tragedies that are affecting our community. I attend some of the events that Mr. Wagner had mentioned. I also attended Everybody's Day up at Penmar. The late Jim Powers and his wife Faye for nearly 27 years have been running that event up there at Penmar every Sunday with music like the summer. It's always well attended, and Faye does an excellent job in keeping the memory of her husband alive. I also attended the Spud Fest on Saturday down at the Ag Center. If many of you don't know, they plant potatoes and dig the potatoes up with the two old horses and an old plow, and the kids just dive in there, and there's awards for the smallest potato, the biggest potato. But what's most important is the minute you think the world's falling apart, you see family together at an event. So that was a very heartwarming event to attend. I have some updates on 81. I yield to the administrator for that, and that would conclude my report.
Well, I'll just say that we were down in Mako last week, and we did have an opportunity to meet with Secretary Ports and the Maryland Department of Transportation, Scott Hobbs, and I, and Susan Grimes was also there, and Jim Kirchwell was there as well. And we had an opportunity to talk to them about 81. We've talked to them for many years now about that, and they couldn't share any information with us. We probably won't know till October. But we're continuing to be hopeful that we're going to be able to see some significant money come into 81, hopefully this fall. You know, I think this administration, the Hogan administration, has been very supportive of that, and they've been helping us along the way. Obviously, that Hogan administration is coming to an end, and they realize that, and I think that they're pulling out all the stops to try to get us money for that for 81.
Yeah,
for this
I'm
year.
going to add to that. I think it was in November 29th, I wasn't able to attend, but some of our staff went down and met with then Secretary Slater of Transportation. Is that correct?
Right, Scott Hobbs and I did go down. We traveled down to MDOT in November of last year to have a meeting. Mark Whitmire was there. Bruce Bariano was there for the same thing. So we're continuing to push that. We're applying for any monies that we can. Scott Hobbs has been instrumental in that. And so we're hopeful that we'll get some good news in October. November 3rd, they will be here. Maryland Department of Transportation will be here for our annual transportation meeting with them. So we can give you all that information, but if you can put that on your calendar, it'll really be helpful. If
Yeah, and I want to add a few more
many commissioners
things
as
too.
we can to have there.
In my conversations this week with Senator Corman, Delegate McKay, and Mark Whitmire, the governor's office, it looks like this spring we did submit an application for a grant requested for the study and design of Phase 2, which I think 10.5 million was awarded.
Right.
So that design phase is underway. And one of the things I then think about, not only is it widening the ramps, it's also the water and sewer projects that have to be added to that project. And then what I'm also hearing is that we did apply for that infra grant back in the spring. I think that was for $65 million. And I think that's what we're waiting to hear from the federal government, the award of that $65 million sometime in October to be announced maybe. So I think we'll keep everybody abreast, and that meeting in November will be open for the public at the training center. And I would encourage everyone to attend on that. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no,
Could you continue with anything else that you have?
You want me to go ahead and do my comments
Yeah, and
now?
then I'll go on to the legal.
Okay, I just have a few. Obviously, I just want to echo what the commissioner said about passing on the sympathies, my sympathies and the sympathies of county government for all the families and friends of the young people in Clear Spring that lost their lives this past week. Also, to the family of John Christ, I know they had to funeral and the viewing on Sunday at HCC. I know there were a lot of people involved with that, so I just want to thank everybody who was involved with that. As I mentioned, I did attend Mako. It was a very good event. I got to interact with a lot of other county administrators and county staff and elected officials from across the state, so that was a good thing. I do want to specifically recognize our public relations and marketing team and our business development team, Danielle and Katie and Susan, Jonathan, Linda, and Carmen. Our booth, we had a great booth at Mako. I think you've probably seen some pictures. It was definitely a hit. It was a very good, it focused on business. It focused on some of our biggest employers and some of our new businesses that are coming in Washington County. So, and we had apple butter from Ivy Hill Farms, which was a big hit. So
Ivy Hill, that's
Ivy Hill, right? And of course, and then the Taste of Maryland. They had a Taste of Maryland reception at Mako this year, which they didn't have last year. And again, that was a big hit for us. We had a lot of local farms and businesses that were part of that. So I just want to thank everybody for that. Just want to remind everybody there will be no county commissioner meeting next week, as that's Labor Day, so our next meeting is September 13th. I did want to wish good luck to all the teachers and students for Washington County Public Schools that started this week, and just remind all of our citizens that students out on the road and buses, as I was driving here today, I was behind a bus, and it seemed like we stopped every block to pick someone up. So just want to remind everybody to keep an eye out for that. And I think that's it.
Commissioner Baker, would you like to have any comments? We did have Father McCarty come in and say a prayer for the community.
Okay.
And any report from
Thank
you,
you.
sir?
Good morning. Again, just my heart goes out to the families in Clear Spring for the loss of their loved ones, the school community. I'm starting to see banners around Clear Spring, Blazer Strong, which to me stands for solidarity, and just every day, please keep those families and the students at Clear Spring and the community in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, legal, Mr. Downey, anything? County clerk?
I do. I have boards and commissions. I have the Administrative Charging Committee to the Police Accountability Board requesting you accept the recommendation to appoint Kurt Wood to serve a 2-year term from September 1 through August 31st, 2024, and Charles Summers to serve a 1-year term from September 1, 2022 through August 31st, 2023.
I'd motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anything else?
Two more. The Washington County Commission for Women requesting that you accept the recommendation to appoint Laurie, and I apologize if I botch this, Chanowski, Cherie McCord, Teresa McPeak, and Salas Riviera, each to serve first 3-year term, September 1 through August 31st, 2025, on the Washington County Commission for Women. This is not a paid board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
The Antietam Battlefield Advisory Committee requesting you accept the recommendation to appoint George Franks, Miriam Cunningham, and Gerard Kendall, each to serve a first 3-year term, September 1 through August 31st, 2025. And this is also not a paid board.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? First and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
What
sir.
else?
That's all.
Continuing with staff reports, Dave Mason, Tony Drury, would you come forward? Introduce your subject.
Good morning, Dave Mason, Deputy Director of Solid Waste.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tony Drury, Recycling Program Coordinator for Washington County. We're here today just to brief you. We have an event coming up on September 10th. It's a scrap tire event. It is funded by Maryland Department of Environment, and it's managed by the Maryland Environmental Services Department. We haven't had, and this is strictly for citizens, so no ag tires or anything like that are allowed. It's going to be from 8 to 2, Saturday, September 10th, rain or shine. The funds that we get do come from MDE. Once again, we have the availability to go up to $16,500 that we will be reimbursed for. We can also be reimbursed up to $1,000 for any advertising that we do as well. Once again, there's a 5-tire maximum, and we haven't run an actual Citizen Day since 2013, so we're expecting it's going to be pretty crazy. So I'm going to be there tracking tires as best I can and just making sure that we don't go over our limit if we can help it. So, any questions or anything?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know our PR department put out a press release about that, and we'll continue to let the public know that that's happening on that
There will
day.
be some ads in the paper, I think a series of ads over the next week.
Okay.
Backpage
Great.
ads and some other social media type ads running through the
Yeah, I did have, you said it was free, right? For,
Yes,
Yeah.
free, up
It
to
is free.
free
But-
per household. So
and
I'll
what
be
would
there
it,
checking drivers.
what would it cost otherwise if it was
$3 a tire
$3 a tire? Okay.
for your regular car tires. So,
And we will have to check license, so we have to track all that good stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? Seeing none, we'll begin with citizens' participation. Anyone wish to come forward? Please come forward, name and address. This is your opportunity for citizens to comment about an issue or issues concerning county practices and interests. This is not an interactive dialogue or question and answer session. It is solely time to hear citizens comment. Please limit your remarks as close to 3 minutes. Hi, Ed Lowe. Amy Olag, or under, we won't cut you short, but for as close as 3 minutes as possible. Please introduce yourselves and the matter.
My name is Ed Lowe. I live at 10728 Connor Drive, Williamsport, Maryland. I'm currently the board president of the Washington County Commission on Aging.
Hi, I'm Amy Olak, the CEO of the Washington County Commission on Aging, located at 535 East Franklin Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
I wasn't really sure we were going to speak today, but when Commissioner Burkett suggested perhaps that we should, I thought we'd come forward. And I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. We currently have, I'm going to speak to our Meals on Wheels program specifically. We currently have 80 people on the waiting list. We've calculated the total amount of money that would be needed to make that waiting list disappear. 80 senior citizens of Washington County, 80 human beings, 80 folks who are going without food or very little food. That number, ironically, comes to $518,553. Just for your information, that number fluctuates upwards and downwards due to a variety of issues. One, more people apply. That would make the list larger. It can also decrease because some of the folks may go into a nursing home, some of the folks may move away from the county or move in with children, and of course some obviously would eventually pass away. So it's a fluctuating number. To give you an example, I think in June, could be July, correct me if I'm wrong, June, that waiting list was at 64, so here we are today at 80 folks, 80 human beings who are surviving on little to no food. So we ask for the commissioners to simply consider, out of the surplus money that you're going to distribute, to give us as close to that number as is feasibly and heartfelt possible to do. And again, that number is $518,553 to make that go away now.
I would just mention that each person that we serve through this program is medically homebound. And so not only are they seniors, but they are medically homebound. And so that definition comes from the federal government. And I would just say, you know, these are the most vulnerable of seniors that are out there and truly have a need and typically cannot get to any other source for food. And so we just ask you for that consideration and knowing that, you know, that number will fluctuate, as Ed mentioned. And, you know, we only see the demand growing as the baby boomers continue and people understand the program's value throughout the community. So thank you so much.
To be fair to the commissioners, I just want to give you a couple outlines of the cost. Food cost has obviously gone up. It's around $210,000 just for the food for these 80 folks. It's $80,000 for 5 part-time drivers, and of course, we've had to increase our mileage to 58 cents per mile. That's still below the federal, which is $62.
62.5 cents.
50.5 cents. Is that 50 cents or a half cent?
62.5 cents.
And a half cents, okay. Only the federal government come up with a half a cent. $114,000 for 2 full-time program specialists to make this thing work. $17,500 actually on mileage cost and et cetera, et cetera. And when you add all those things up, and a couple of things I skipped, because I don't want to just take up too much time, that's how we get to $518,553. Anybody who wishes a copy of these numbers, facts, we're certainly willing to give to each of you.
I know we don't normally comment, but I didn't know you all were coming in today.
We didn't either, actually. We just sort of made a rash, final, quick decision.
But are you all still in need of drivers for Meals on Wheels program?
Absolutely, we are. And if we increase the program, we will definitely need drivers. And this actual cost builds in volunteer drivers.
And so I did that for a little while, and it's a very rewarding thing, and it's sometimes the only people these guys see throughout a day. When you pull up to give them the meal, you're the only person they see. And so I would challenge people within Washington County to give Amy a call and sign up to become a Meals on Wheels. Do it one day a week.
Absolutely.
Takes an hour or two, doesn't take much effort. There's a lot of church people out there that could get involved in this worthy project, so.
Again, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing with citizens' participation. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll begin with the next agenda item, the proclamation recognizing September and October, November as Forget-Me-Nots. Gentlemen, would you come forward, introduce yourself and the matter, and we have a proclamation for you. You can take the seats right there. Please begin.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Miles Jones here. He's the new commander of our organization. And this will be his first time here. And so I think he's rather impressed with what he sees. And I thank you all very much for your participation and getting us this authorization to put our places up out in the community to collect money, and all this money we collect does go back out to the community. It goes to, there's several organizations that we support. So seems like I'm here every year. You're tired of seeing my face, but that's life.
We have a new one now to see every year.
Well, you won't get tired of mine. I'm going to be here. Hopefully not get tired.
Okay. Any comments from your new?
First of all, good morning, and thank you very much. My name is Miles Rodney Jones. I'm the new commander for DAV Chapter 14 TAG. I'm grateful to be here. A little bit about me real quick. 21 years in the military. Retired, 100% DAV, disabled vet. 15 years with Department of Defense, protection service dignitaries, presidents included, at the National Medical Center. And now I'm here retired, serving disabled veterans. And I'm proud to do this. I'm grateful to be amongst distinguished individuals for commissioners in Hagerstown, Washington County. But thank you very much for having us, and I'm here to serve. I'd like to be more involved with the community of Hagerstown and Washington County. So I'm available. I gave Mr. Klein my card. And if you want to call me, and I'm ready to serve once again.
And Miles, our county clerk will send your contact information to our Veterans Commission, and perhaps you can attend and/or be guest speakers for that
Thank you
group.
very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right?
Thank you.
If not, would you join me up by the flag, and we'll have a proclamation for you.
Just have to move slow.
I know that feeling. Can you come closer if you want?
Closer?
Right up, yeah, come on, Miles, you right there in the center.
Commander in charge.
There you go, right in there, as close as you want. Okay. On behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, we are honored to present this proclamation today to the Disabled American Veterans Organization Forget Me Not Months, September, October, and November of 2022. Whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization offers free services to disabled veterans and their families in filing claims for government benefits, as well as the resolution of problems regarding employment, health care, and counseling. And whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization strives to respond to emergency needs arising in the family for any disabled veteran. And whereas the community wishes to express a deep and continuing sense of gratitude to those disabled veterans who gave so much to protect and preserve our way of life. And whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization has chosen September, October, and November of 2022 for its annual Forget Me Not Drive in Washington County, and pledges that all contributions will be utilized for disabled veterans and their families in our community. Now therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, hereby recognize September, October, November of 2022 as Forget Me Not months, and encourage all citizens to join in and support those who've given so freely to protect and defend the rights and freedoms of all. Thank you. Congratulations. We appreciate you, gentlemen. We appreciate all of you. Let's have a picture here. You guys hang on to that. That's yours.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
And now one more picture. If you could join the commissioners front and center.
Yes.
Commissioners, would you join us? Get you two right in the middle. Right in here somewhere.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm a former handshake. I don't mean to.
Okay. Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Okay. Everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good to see you again.
JR, good to see you. Thank you. Just holler at me when I'm out walking the halls.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, nice seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
As we continue, it's going to be a tough act to follow, but we have some people here from Mako. Folks, would you come forward, introduce yourself, and welcome to Washington County. We appreciate your visit.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us, or letting us spend some time with you this morning. I'm Laura Everingham Price, the current president of the Maryland Association of Counties and Talbot County Council member. Serving my last year after 12 years in elected office, and honored to do so and spend this final year, with this gentleman to my left, wonderful leader next to me, Michael Sanderson, who is the one who gets it all done, keeps it all organized, and leads this really incredible organization that I love so very much. I know I've said this in legislative committee and to the board members many, many times, that he's a shining example of how to get things done in a nonpartisan way and look at how legislation affects the counties and not necessarily how many zeros are at the end of our budget. and make these decisions based on what's best for the counties. And he always finds an incredible staff. We had a lot of new staff come in on both sides of the policy side and the member services side over the past year, and he's gotten them up to speed, and they are incredible workers. We just got back from, I'm sure many of you were with us at summer conference in Ocean City week before last. It was the biggest and most successful conference we've ever had. I think the largest year was 2019, pre-COVID, at like 3,100 bodies. This year was 3,600. It was an amazing vibe. While we were back to, a full conference last summer, it just felt different. People were a lot more comfortable this year, and the socialization, which is what's so important for relationship building between, us county elected officials and the legislative delegates and senators, and having those relationships forming again. We'll see how that goes, who actually comes back and stuff after November, but still it's wonderful to get back together and build those relationships so that we can get some serious work done, some important work done as we start leading into getting ready for the next session, which will be here before we know it. That's where the work gets done, is a lot of it is behind the scenes. And so it's still really important that we go back over updates from the last legislative session, even though we're almost rolling into September. And we've had a primary and all that. We had MACO always has so much success. And also sometimes bills that we're not so much a fan of, we can make those die, which is a good thing, or we can certainly add amendments. So they don't necessarily turn out perfectly, but we've had some really great wins this year, and I'd like to mention the first one. After I thank Charles, you, Commissioner Burkett, serving on our legislative committee, because we have a representative from each county that comes, and we've done it mostly virtually the past couple of years, but spending several hours every Wednesday morning for the first 8 to 10 weeks or so of session, and devoting your time. So we want to thank you very much for the time that you have devoted to doing that. And obviously what we want to do is make sure that all of the rest of you really know what we do, have this be a conversation, not just a presentation from us to you, because we want to know what we did good. We always like to hear that, but we also want to know areas where you think that we can do better as an organization and what you'd like to see from us going forward. That's how, MACO is effective, is to have that feedback from all of you, not just our legislative committee representative. The one that I just absolutely love to talk about is the emergency transport bill. And for those members who aren't as familiar, or for your Washington County citizens, for the last 20 years or so, we would only get reimbursed for emergency transport, when you call 911, and we have wonderful EMTs and paramedics, and we only got reimbursed, though, if they transported you to the emergency room. And it was only $100, and it hadn't been raised, since pre-2000. And that obviously was not going to be enough compensation, but also recognizing the true professional service and health care that our EMTs and paramedics are trained to do. So what we sought out to do in this bill and accomplished was not only to raise the fee, which went from 100 to 150, but also to be reimbursed if we just came and treated you. Because sometimes you don't need to go to an emergency room, and we can take care of you. Maybe we've administered naloxone and revived you, and whether that somebody refuses transport or they just don't need to be transported. So that's one. Another area that now we get reimbursement for is if we transport you to someplace that's more appropriate, like an urgent care center or your doctor's office or some other type of facility. So that is also taken care of. And the third aspect is mobile integrated health. People are like, oh. Well, sometimes in a rural county like Talbot County or Washington County, you have your EMTs and paramedics, and they're in the station, and we're not being called out constantly. And we know who I call them, our frequent flyers. citizens who don't have access to healthcare. They don't necessarily have their own doctors, and so rather than trying to go out and figure out how to do that, they may call 911. And so we know who those people are. And so now we can go out and be proactive and check on those people instead and maybe avoid that 911 call in that emergency situation. So all of those things were accomplished, with this bill, and it was, in the waning days of session, and I'd say maybe a month or so before session was over, things started to open up. We were able to get out and see people face to face and shake some hands, and that, I think, made all the difference in the world in several pieces of the legislation, and really got it done in the last few days. And we had, at that point, I think we had all of our policy staff, all hands on deck, and we really got this done, and it was incredible. So you might be wondering, well, what was this bill? And I kind of skipped over one of my paragraphs because it's been about 6 weeks since Michael and I have done this, and we're a little out of practice. But every year, MACO selects 4 legislative initiatives, and we have another committee of people who go through that. And we start with anywhere from 30 to 50 bills. We're in the middle of that process right now, and we whittle these down to our bylaws that say no more than 4. And we got down to, and I wish, we had selected 3, and of course highway user revenues and some other initiatives, and we were down to 2 side because we can't have 5, and we were down to doing something with cybersecurity or something with this emergency transport bill. And we all know, especially with COVID, how much we've been attacked with the cybersecurity and having to do all these Zoom rooms and whatnot. But we knew that that was going to have legs of its own, that everybody recognized that. But the legislature was not going to recognize what we needed to do with this emergency transport. And now that I've described it, I think you can all understand that this is something that really was something that had to be a county initiative. And Michael was sitting there, and we were in the committee. He's like, I don't know, this is going to be a tough bill to get through. And now that I've already told you that we got it through, my story isn't quite as good. But we were like, this needs to be us, because without MACO's voice, this bill doesn't exist. And so it got through. We made that selection. He thought it would take a couple of years to get it through, but circumstances being what they are, and I'm sure he'll get into, the financial economy and how that's a very unique situation that we're in right now that's helped this bill get along. But we were also still very important advocates and supporters of the cybersecurity as well. So I'm going to let Michael take over from here, give you a couple more updates, and maybe give you a little bit forecast into next session.
Well, thank you all very much for the chance to speak with you this morning. I'm Michael Sanderson, Director at the Maryland Association of Counties. I want to be respectful of your time. We gave you a packet of information that has a little bit of background on a few issues drawn from the Conduit Street blog that we generate to try and keep everybody on top of policy and news issues that affect county governments. I want to mention just a few things, and if there's something that I miss or that you want to talk about further, that's probably the best way to be respectful of your agenda. I do want to talk about policy, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to offer some great praise upon Washington County. I heard the mention of the MACO conference and the Taste of Maryland back this year at the what you might not realize is that the whole idea of the Taste of Maryland at the MACO conference, which is now, like, Crab Feast is awesome. It's 1A on the list of popular and the events that people look forward to. This is an outgrowth of Washington County being fantastic at MACO conferences. So your economic development and tourism and promotional staff have always stepped to the plate and hit home runs year after year. Washington County sets the standard for this kind of stuff. A number of years ago, you brought in a local creamery with their local cheeses and so forth, and we had the idea, what if we could get other counties to step up to the plate in the way that Washington County has? We could really put together a great event like they do Taste of DC and Taste of Chicago, and I've been to those sorts of things, and that's awesome. A Taste of Maryland was our vision, and it was all built around if everybody could be almost as good as Washington County, we'd really have something. Not everybody's there, but Washington County sets the standard and did it again this year.
Mako had a staff meeting just yesterday morning, and the first conversation topic was, did you taste that jam from the Washington County booth? And those who had it are now in the privileged position of having an asset that's very desirable among the staff. So forgive the aside. Washington County always brings their A game to the event, and we're very, very grateful for that, and the attendees are as well. So that said, a couple real quick things on policy. I don't want to take a whole lot of your time, but from the Annapolis point of view, I'm reluctant to get super deep into the last legislative session. A lot of things happened, but now that we're sort of, into the warmer months and it'll start getting colder soon, I start looking forward. But one thing I do want to mention that's a big deal that doesn't get into the papers because it's a little bit complicated, but I want you to know about. You may be aware that the governor and General Assembly came together to do some tax relief for seniors and for retirees. It's been on the governor's agenda, worked its way into a compromise package of fiscal issues. What we know is historically when the state takes on income taxes, they do things by write-offs. The term of art is subtraction modifications, but basically you can write things off on your taxes, on your state taxes. And when they do that, that means the county gives a tax break right along with the state because it affects taxable income, and that's your tax base. We've always said to the state, you could do this by way of a state tax credit and make it a state initiative without it carrying the county revenues along with it. This year, when it came time to give retirees a tax benefit, they made it a state-only tax break. So it's the full $1,000 benefit comes off the state, as opposed to, well, we'll do $600 or $700 and the counties will just be along the way for a big chunk of it. It lets you make the call on whether you have the facility to do something in tax relief for a group for seniors or for other classes of your residents. It lets you be in charge of your own finances. That's how they've always done things with property taxes. For them to come around the bend with this on income taxes is potentially a pretty big deal. If the original plan had gone through, we could have been on the hook for like $300 million of local effect by just basically being we're the tail, they're the dog. For them to say this should be a state initiative and the state decision makers will deal with the state finances, that's a really good precedent. And if the next 10 years are different than the last 10 on income taxes, it could be a pretty big deal for fiscal autonomy.
I'd like to jump in real quick on this. This is something where these submods that we call them, dozens and dozens and dozens are introduced every year. And rather than, this is where Mako is so effective, and we're having the same drumbeat year after year. It's like an advertisement. You have to see it, 7 times before you finally, sink in, say, I want to buy that thing. So this is probably about the 7th year that what we do is we have put together a letter that we've used pretty much the same letter for the last 7 years. And rather than going and testifying on every one of these submod bills, we submit this letter to the committee, and they finally got it. And that's why it's so important, why Mako is so effective, is because we have the same message and we carry that and we're very consistent. And it worked this year. And as Michael said, if this is going to be the new standard for the next 10 plus years, we're in great shape for local autonomy on that.
So I'll make just passing reference to a couple other things, and if you'd like to get into them further, I'm happy to do that. I heard earlier in your comments in the meeting earlier about appointing people to your police accountability board. Every county is in the midst of constructing this new civilian-driven law enforcement oversight. The legislature still hasn't gotten this quite right. State regulations have made this more complicated with training. We got a weird ruling from the Judicial Ethics Commission that our senior judges can't serve as the chair of your trial boards, and they were probably the most natural complement of people to do that. So we're in a quirky situation trying to make this work. Every county is making a good faith effort. You're there too. We're doing our share to pull this together. We might need some help from the legislature to tidy this law up a little bit and maybe give us some more flexibility. So that may be in the year ahead. And with highway user revenues, it's a topic that I've been at this table mentioning a number of times. We made a good step forward, but we're not done with this fight. A bill passed. We were about to fall off a cliff with that share of gas taxes and vehicle taxes that come back to counties and municipalities. We're about to lose a big chunk. Instead, we'll take a step forward, get to about half again where our level of funding is today. That's not the end of the fight. We're not all the way back. Mako will stay engaged on this and probably rev it up toward the end of this next four-year term when we have another fiscal cliff again, as Annapolis is sometimes wont to do. So a lot of things happening, and it would be silly not to mention that Annapolis is going to look awfully different this next go-round. That leadership will have a new governor and administration, but also a new attorney general, a new comptroller, already have a new treasurer and a relatively new Speaker of the House and President of the Maryland Senate. With all that change in fiscal leadership, MACO is sort of a stalwart and something of an institution in town. We work with everybody. We play ball with everybody. We're aggressively nonpartisan and practical in the way we approach issues. That has been our stock and trade, and it's a big part of our effectiveness. We'll continue to play the same way. The roster's going to change, but we'll play ball just the same as usual and do our best to serve and represent you all. Thank you all for your time.
Question. Blueprint for Maryland Education. Any thoughts or comments on update on that?
So big picture for folks who are watching and listening this morning, the state is a couple years into a multi-year commitment to ramp up both the state and county commitment to public education, and has a number of policy goals of what we want to deliver in our public schools. One of our big crises right now is that we're just getting this off the ground. We're literally in like year 2 of a 8 or 10 year phase in, and we already see shortcomings in practice, that school systems are dramatically, like the number of vacancies in school system staff, teachers and non-teaching positions and bus drivers, that we're just aching for people to fill roles. So I think there will be a political push that there's not enough cash right now, independent of sort of the 10-year plan of how to get to higher aspirations for what we deliver in education. The fight of the moment will be that maybe today's formulas right at the moment are insufficient to deliver for this September and this coming school year. And that will be a political fight about, you know, what resources are available at the state level, could be called upon by the county level for the budget that you all will cut, you know, this coming spring, and even for the, you know, the fiscal year that we're just a few weeks into. So as a practical matter, I don't think the debate is done just because this big bill passed a couple of years ago. The idea of coming back to the well and asking counties to go another level beyond with funding what's already being asked of counties, I think would be aggressive, but the argument on the ground is going to be present. There are going to be folks who will, you know, just look at the headlines. We can't hire bus drivers.
I know I've already seen it in my, my county. When we did the budget, I just assumed, and that was maybe naive, that once we had this formula and specific amount of funding every year that we had to do, I thought that the discussion with the school board was done. Okay, this is exactly what it's going to be, and yet they're still asking for more because, what they've told me is that's Kerwin, which is the name of the group that put all this together, was not, that would be all-inclusive. And they're saying, no, they forgot, they didn't do this, this, and this. And so the funding is still being asked more. When counties, as you know, the level of funding is going to go up dramatically. And so, and now coupling it with this and lack of, being able to fill positions and all, that formula is going to be, I don't know, it might be another floor again that we're always going to be asked to do more, which is a lot, because it is always, I think, at least 50% of all of our county budgets for education.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions?
I just would say on a personal level, I've only been here sitting in this chair for about 17, 18 months. I was appointed. And when I first came on, I was asked to take over as this committee, and just really enjoyed serving on it. I tried to make it to all those evening Zooms and the other stuff, and just really found it interesting and enjoyed it. And just so thank you for what you do. And I didn't make it through the primary, so I won't be back next year, but who knows what the future holds. And but you all do a good job, and it was really neat to know that small counties getting together can have an impact even on what the big counties want to do. I saw that time and time again with different stuff.
Well, and thank you.
Thank you.
We have, the Rural County Coalition and a large county coalition, but we do get together, the 16 or so, we now have 16 people on the call, but you were always there. We appreciate that. And discussing everything that we're going to discuss on Wednesday morning, we go through it as a Rural County Coalition to see, I mean, like I said, 90% of the time, the positions that we take are universal for all 24 jurisdictions. But there are occasions where we need to discuss a bill a little bit separately. And I appreciate you for the last year and a half doing that and participating on those Monday night calls. I have one request. Well, I'm trying to get a picture of every county that I visit. Can I get you all to indulge me in posing for a picture with Michael and I?
Sure.
That would be great.
And you're just doing a John Barr.
Hey, he got it all done prior to summer conference. I'm really disappointed that I've got like 6 more counties to go.
Together. Back row sort of fun.
1, 2, 3.
And some background, I think she won. What award did you win? Dressed up as George Washington?
Yeah, Mr. George.
Oh, there you go. Oh, it's always good. We can pick for you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's appreciated. Thank you. Good to see you. Appreciate it. Yes.
Laura, thank you very much for coming.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, pardon me? Yeah, how long is this going to take you think?
5 minutes maybe?
We can do this and do the public hearing a couple minutes late. Is that okay? We'll still be people, yeah. Please, Susan, introduce the
sure.
topic.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Susan Grimes, Department of Business Development. I'm here to present to you our monthly Faces of Farming videos. The Faces of Farming project is an agricultural-focused video marketing campaign that showcases 2 local Washington County farms every month. The marketing videos will be showcased on our website as well as our social media platforms, and they target a new industry and highlight a local farmer from that agricultural industry every month. This month will be focused on equine. Washington County's agricultural business is the backbone of Washington County's landscape. With over 900 operating family farms and over $153 million in market value of products sold each year, agriculture remains one of the largest economic drivers in Washington County. The Faces of Farming marketing campaign aims to educate residents in Washington County and the surrounding states and counties about the economic impact of the ag industry here in Washington County. Additionally, these videos will be used for agricultural education to numerous streams around our county, such as 4-H, FFA, Ag Expo and Fair, and they will also be available on our ag website, or on our ag app and our website. So today I'm presenting 2 videos to you, Bethany Doppel from BD Horsemanship and Above and Beyond Farm. Enjoy.
My name is Bethany Doppel, and I am the owner of BD Horsemanship. I do it all from teaching lessons, I help with feeding, and I basically run the whole show. We primarily do lessons throughout the week, but we also have a leasing program, a 4-H program, and we are very active in horse showing as well. We travel out to Frederick and Gettysburg, as well as some local shows, and we also love to compete in 4-H. So I started out volunteering at Star Equestrian about 10 years ago. That's when I first got into it. I fell in love with the therapeutic riding, ended up going to Wilson College for therapeutic riding, and did a minor in regular riding instruction, and got my certifications to do therapeutic as well. So I spent a few years at Star teaching therapeutic and recreational, And whenever I left there last year, I decided to keep going with teaching and opened my own business. If I could leave you with something about the equine industry, it would be take the risk and push through. It's a lot. It's stressful, it's overwhelming, it's late nights, early mornings, pulling your hair out, not knowing what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong. Push through, because then when you have that moment where you're going, yes, you got it, that's the moment it's worth it. My name is Bethany Doppel, and I am
Hi, I'm Gigi Leager, and this is Above and Beyond Farm. We're a boarding barn here in Washington County. We have 30 acres, of which 17 acres is pasture, and we have 26 horses that board here. My husband and I just love it here, and the thing that really gives us joy is the horses. We just love taking care of them. They each have their own individual personality. It's been fun getting to know each and every one. Only 2 of the horses that live here belong to us, so the others belong to our boarders. People can take lessons here. We have both an indoor and outdoor arena, and we have some trails, or we hack the fields in the summer. There are challenges. I think especially right now, I think the inflation on the price of feed and shavings and fuel is everything that we do here to support and provide for the horses is impacted by inflation right now. So that's been very difficult. And also, I think Maryland has a deep tradition, and Washington County does as well, in the equine industry. But I think the most important part of the equine industry is the relationship that you have with your horses and what it can give to the person who has that relationship. I think this is a place of calm for so many people. You're out in the hustle and bustle of the world, and you come here and you're focused on you and your horse or your friend's horse, and it gives you that break from the world to recharge your batteries and to take care of a beautiful living creature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Next on our agenda is a public hearing concerning the potential addition of certain nonprofit organizations to the list, and the Board of Community Commissioners may contribute funds. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss and take any action they deem appropriate, including adoption, rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Mr. Downey, would you please introduce the matter?
Thank you. Commissioners, the Code of Public Local Laws, Section 1-108, allows the Board of County Commissioners to make contributions to the care, operation, maintenance, or capital expense of certain nonprofit organizations in Washington County pursuant to the board's budget process. However, for an organization to be eligible for any type of funding, in particular community organization funding, the organization has to present an application to this board. The application has to be considered at a public hearing, and then the board makes a decision whether to include the organizations on the list of organizations that would be eligible for such funding. This year, the county has received requests from 4 organizations to be added to the 1-108 list. The organizations are the St. John's Family Shelter, Inc., Hope for Change Incorporated, Camp Ritchie Museum, Inc., and Friends of the Washington County Rural Heritage Museum. The letters of request and the supporting materials that the organization submitted are included in your agenda package. In addition, the organizations were informed when the hearing would be held and were invited to attend and present any additional information that they wish the board to consider concerning their applications. And at this time, it would be appropriate to hear from any of the applicants who are present and wish to speak today.
Okay, thank you. Would any applicants want to come forward? Any of them here?
In that case, it would be appropriate to open the public hearing to anyone else who wishes to testify.
Open for public comment? Hearing none. The commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, finally, to clarify, the only purpose of this is to put decide whether the organizations are included on the list. You have to be on the list to be eligible, but this is not a funding decision. That would be done as part of the county's budget process through the community organization funding process.
Okay.
I do have just a quick question. It seems like everybody has supporting information in here, but I don't see anything from Friends of Washington County Rural Heritage Museum. Am I missing something, or?
My office received a request by email from that organization asking that it be added to the list, that it be the subject of this public hearing, but they didn't provide any supplemental or additional information. That's why there's nothing else.
So would it be appropriate for us to make a decision on them? I mean, I don't even see that email request in here.
That's up to the board.
Is this the organization that works out of our buildings at the Ag Center?
I believe so, yes.
I believe it is.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? If not, I'll deem the public hearing is now concluded. Commissioners, what actions would you like to take?
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'd be okay with all of them.
Is that a motion to approve inclusion? Is there a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning an application for an amendment to the water and sewer plan. The purpose of waste and water sewer plan WS-22-001, forgive me for not saying that. The purpose of this hearing is a public hearing to hear testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be giving a maximum of 3 minutes to testify, and everyone who wishes to speak has done so. The hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Ms. Kinzer, would you please introduce the matter?
Absolutely. Good morning, Jennifer Kinzer, Deputy Director, Washington County Planning and Zoning. Jill Baker couldn't be with us this morning. So for your consideration this morning is a water and sewerage plan amendment, WS-22-001, submitted by Jacob Bertner, owner and trustee of land located at 39 Mount Hebron Road in Keedysville, Maryland. The purpose of this amendment is to extend the existing sewer service to the Bertner Farm to build a single-family dwelling for an immediate family member. Currently, a portion of the Bertner property is located within the municipal boundary of the town of Keedysville, while the remainder of the farm is zoned preservation and has been permanently preserved from future development through the Rural Legacy Land Preservation Program. While permanently preserved, the Bertner Farm retained one development right for the purpose of constructing this single-family dwelling for an immediate family member. Regarding the water and sewage plan, the Bertner property has a split designation that correlates with the municipal boundary split. The portion of the property located within the municipal limits has a service area designation of S1 for existing service. The remainder of the property has a service area designation of S7 for no planned service. Now, the reason for this request is unique due to the property's location within the Boonesboro Wellhead Protection Area. The Boonesboro-Keedysville Regional Water System obtains its water supply from two springs, the Wardenfelts and Keedysville Spring, and two wells, the Greystone Well No. 8 and Schaefer Park Well. The wellhead protection area was delineated around these water resources through source water assessments completed by the Maryland Department of the Environment in 2005. As shown in the original application, the proposed location of the new dwelling unit would be located within the defined wellhead protection area. Since the primary goal of the wellhead protection area is to limit additional sources of contamination, the Health Department recommended to Mr. Bertner that hooking up to a nearby public sewer service system would be the best practice available for this dwelling. This amendment request proposes to change the sewer service area designation for the portion of the farm outside of the municipal boundary to an S3 program service designation. The Planning Commission held its public input meeting on August 2nd, 2022, for the purpose of taking public comment on the request. No comments, either written or verbal, were received. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request provided that the designation placed on the property be S3 restricted and that the number of new connections be limited to the number of development rights granted by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources as part of the approved and recorded rural legacy easement. That concludes my staff presentation. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Okay. Want to open the hearing up for public comment? Anyone here to testify? Hearing none. Commissioners? Oops, come on forward. I didn't see you. Got to be quick. Please introduce yourselves in the matter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Bertner. This is my daughter-in-law, Nikki Bertner, and I've lived on the farm since we've owned this farm since 1983 and did the rural legacy thing 20 years ago now, and we were trying to build another home for our son and daughter-in-law and their family, and are running into difficulty with the sewer and stuff. So we were just hoping for your consideration and allowing us to hook up to the public sewer.
Thank you.
It might be fair to add too that, I was on the planning commission, we heard this, and I didn't vote at that because I knew you were coming for a public hearing. I personally, the planning commission was unanimous that it was fine. And just for the commissioner's information, you've already done your rural legacy, which sets no development rights. You have one development right, and it's for immediate family, which we do all the time. So, I have no problem with it, so.
Okay. Are there any other comments that you'd like to make? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to make comments? Hearing none. The public commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, the public hearing is now concluded. Commissioners, your thoughts or additional comments? Want to move forward with the motion, accept, deny?
I'd motion it was approved.
Yeah, have a
Second.
motion. There have first and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is 10:45 public hearing, or about 2 minutes. We'll take a,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Todd can probably do the state surplus.
Why don't you do the 11:15?
okay.
Do the 11:15 topic.
All right, we'll do the 11 a.m. topic, public hearing, regional airport. Wait a minute.
11:15, I think, the 11:15, Todd is on for state surplus property.
Okay, which one do you want to do? Because I got 3 in a row right here. Okay, 11:15, state surplus property.
Yeah, the 11 o'clock hearing needs to wait until 11 o'clock so we can be sure that anybody who wants to testify has the opportunity to do so.
Just state surplus, I guess.
We can do that, yeah.
Okay. State surplus, introduce yourself and the subject, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Todd Moser, Real Property Administrator, Division of Engineering. Arrived at a consensus to decline acquisition of state surplus property. The state of Maryland has declared a property located off the west side of Maryland Route 67, west of Weaverton Road, between William Way and Treetop Drive in Knoxville, Washington County, consisting of 0.302 acres to be surplus property. In accordance with Maryland Department of Transportation Policy and Procedures, the state has offered the county first right of refusal. County would be required to pay market value determined by the state for the property. County staff has reviewed the property and determined the property would serve no immediate or future use to the county.
So basically, we don't need it.
That's correct.
Yep.
You want a consensus or a vote?
Just consensus.
I believe just a consensus for this.
Is there a consensus to decline?
Decline, I would.
Yeah.
5-0 to consensus. Thank you very much. We're still 15 minutes ahead. You were to talk longer, Todd?
I'll take a break now.
Let's take a slight recess till 11 o'clock and stay on. We'll be back right before 11.
Hi, Roger.
Good morning. Haven't seen
You'll get to see this today.
You went past it.
We did state surplus.
I know, but did you have one in your book?
And here we go with this.
Hagerstown Regional Airport.
Okay, we're back on air. It's 11 o'clock. Now going to go forward with the next public hearing. Next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning a potential acquisition of real property by condemnation for the use of Hagerstown Regional Airport. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will have staff first introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak and has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the matter under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Mr. Moser and Mr. Kukata, did I say that right again?
Yes, sir.
Would you please introduce yourself in the matter?
Todd Moser, Real Property Administrator.
Mahesh Kukara with Airport Design Consultants, County's aviation attorney.
Currently, Washington County does not own the runway visibility zone area, which has the air-filled fence and old fire station preventing line of sight requirements for the RVZ. Therefore, there is an operational restriction on runway 2-20 after the air traffic control tower closes between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. In addition, the air-filled fence along runway 2-20 is in the ROFA and must be moved to outside of the ROFA, requiring additional property acquisition. There are 3 areas to be acquired by Washington County to address the RVC and ROFA improvements. Parcels A and parcels B is associated with the RVC, and parcel C associated with the ROFA. Parcel A, consisting of 0.04 acres, will be acquired by Washington County from First Flight Limited Partnership. Parcel B, 2.70 acres, will be acquired by Washington County from New Heights Industrial Park LLC. Parcel C, 0.14 acres, will be acquired by Washington County from First Flight Limited Partnership. The proposed total property acquisition is 2.88 acres. The sellers are anticipated to consent to the acquisition. Fiscal impact, $1,600,000 for the acquisition, or such amount as the circuit court may order. Professional services consisting of $150,000, miscellaneous cost $25,000, removal and reinstallation of the fence and gates for aircraft access from New Heights property to the airport, and demolition of the old fire station, $1,200,000. This project is currently on the FAA ACIP and the county CIP. Project will be funded with 90% FAA funds and 5% MAA funds, subject to some limitations. And Mahesh, if you would like to.
The 2 things I want to clarify is the runway visibility zone. Obviously, you know the airport, there's 2 runways at Hagerstown. The primary runway is 927. That's a 7,000 foot runway, east-west runway. And the smaller runway is 220. It's a crosswind runway. It's about 3,000 feet. And the tower, when the tower closes at 10 o'clock each night, there is an operational restriction on the use of runway 220. We cannot use 220 if the tower is not operational, because if you're on runway 927, you're required to be able to see a certain distance onto the intersecting runway. Right now, with the runway visibility zone, that's not clear. That's where the old fire station is, where all the fence and gates are. That's the reason why we're required to purchase the property and remove those obstructions there, so there is clear visibility. The other one is the smaller 0.14 acres, is the runway object-free area for runway 220. There is 2 lines of fences. If you were going on Showalter Road, you would see 2 lines of fences that go north-south. One of them is ours, that's within the object-free area. The other one is the Top Flight, which used to be the previous owner. So the intent is to purchase the property and remove our fence and move it to where the outside the object-free area, so there is no restrictions on the runway.
Okay. Does that finish your introduction? Okay. We will now open the hearing for public comment.
let me clarify a couple of things before we go any further. Obviously, the reason that Todd and Mahesh explained from an operational standpoint is why this is needed for the airport's operation. This is, the Code of Public Local Laws requires a public hearing when there is any money expended from the general fund prior to the acquisition of property. This is a little different than the standard outright purchase of property. Because of some title issues affecting the property, we have determined that the cleanest way to acquire title is by exercise of the county's power of condemnation. So therefore, the proposed ordinance recites that the property is needed for a public purpose and there's public necessity for the proposed condemnation, and that the proposed purchase price is $1.6 million, which is a negotiated price. However, that is subject to the final order of the circuit court as part of the condemnation proceedings. So I just wanted to clarify that this, while it is an ordinance to approve the acquisition of property, the acquisition is not through a straight outright purchase. There will be a condemnation action filed in the circuit court.
Does that finish the introduction?
May I offer something?
Mr. Downey?
Make sure we get this.
Please do.
Okay with you all.
Please do.
Roger Schlossberg on behalf of New Heights, owner of the fee interest in the parcels. I think that was A and B, or if I got that right. The third parcel is not presently owned by First Flight Limited Partnership, as was described. I think it might have been your remarks, Commissioner, but that's not correct today. That is in the name of the condominium association, has title to the other. First Flight may have some trailing interest in it, but it belongs to the condo association. And all this will get cleaned up in the condemnation proceeding, but I wouldn't want your resolution to limit it to ownership by First Flight Limited Partnership. The correct name of the condo association is First Flight Air Park Condominium, Inc. It is a condominium which has the interest in that. New Heights controls that. New Heights has 97% of the interests in the condo association and can control all actions taken with respect to the same. As to First Flight Limited Partnership, if I say the name Barry Peterson, will that cause anyone here to shudder? Yeah, okay. Mr. Peterson is no longer in control, and we'll move through it.
Thank you.
So to summarize this, we have a safety issue. We have to remedy the safety issue. We have a dirty ownership everywhere, so we have to do condemnation. And if we don't do that, I mean, it's definitely a safety factor. And only one question I had was, it has removal and reinstallation of the fence and gates for aircraft access. That's not a through gate agreement, is it, or is it? I'm just curious.
It would still be a through the fence operation, Commissioner. Unfortunately, I think that was the previous standing court order that grants rights to the property owners on that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, whatever.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So as Commissioner Wagner said, I certainly understand the need for this. This could open up more opportunities at the airport even. It's a safety issue. I'm curious, I'm sure we'll have some astute citizens out there that's following $1.6 million for 2.88 acres, and it looks like the one building on there, the old firehouse, fire tower, we're going to be tearing down. How is that value derived? How did we as a county place a value on what to offer?
I was not involved in these negotiations. There was an appraisal, and then Mahesh, you can comment after the appraisal, how the negotiations.
Right, so we went through, Commissioner, we went through multiple appraisals because it's over $1 million. FAA process requires 2 appraisals. You know, you do the first appraisal, if it comes over $1 million, then you have to do the second one. They are within that range, and we went to the FAA, as I hear, the appraisals. There was a review appraisal. And they came back and actually issued it in writing that they will support the acquisition to those numbers that we were requesting right now. So what they make is they don't say we approve everything, but they say it is eligible for reimbursement. So there is a number there, and that matches what we have here.
So there's a possibility it may not be reimbursed?
There will be. Well, the first the FAA does is they do the determination on the eligibility. This year, fiscal 2022, federal fiscal year, they had the money available. And obviously with the condemnation process, we weren't able to conclude the process. So once the acquisition is complete, then they will issue a grant that will be either fiscal 23 or fiscal 24, depending on when this process will be complete.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Commissioner Kiefer just asked a couple questions that I was thinking about, but so are these people not wanting to sell and we're making them sell?
No, this is clearly title discrepancies. This is the cleanest path to get good title for this property. The owners are in agreement to sell the property. This is what we consider a friendly condemnation.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public for comment? Seeing none, commissioners, any other additional comments?
Yeah, so all of the costs that you've provided us with today, we're guaranteed 95% from the federal government, 5% from the state of Maryland, and it looks like our cost could be $150,000 at 5% of those totals.
Generally, Commissioner Becker, that is correct. All federal grants, they come at 90% for airports of our size. State normally participated with 5%, and the sponsor was 5%. State of Maryland changed their policy about 2-3 years ago that most major costs are reimbursed at that 5%, but some of the costs, soft costs, what's the consultant costs, those are the costs that they will not participate in. So there will be more than 5% on the county when this goes through.
So when you say more than 5%, what would the
Up to-
maximum be?
Maximum would be 10%.
Okay.
I would just say it sounds like a lot of money for 2 acres.
And then I guess the other question I had, on the condemnation, you just said the owners are willing participants, willing to sell, so why do we have to go through
There's the 3% owner here that I believe is causing most of the issues with the title.
That's not entirely accurate. The 3% owner is subject to the control of the 97% owner. That'll go through. This property went through a lot of ugliness over the years. Multiple foreclosures, multiple bankruptcies, a receivership where I was the receiver. This is a screwed up mess, and it is best cleaned up by getting a court. You can get all the title policies in the world, but the best title in the world is when you get a tax sale. You can only get that if in default, you're not getting there, or a condemnation order. You got a judge says everybody who was a party to this case is now wiped out. So anybody who we're concerned about, and Kirk and I and Kendall have been talking about this at length, we're going to figure out what the concern is. Frankly, I'm just pitching in thoughts on it. Kendall and Kirk are going to make the decision what it is that we got to worry about, and those are the people who are going to be the defendants. We're very close to being ready to do it. Can't do anything until we get legislative authority, of course, but so be it. And my client will file a consent to the complaint the same day the complaint is filed. The other parties will bring them in, get them all served. This is just the nature of condemnation. This is just the way we get to do it. It's not about a fight trying to force somebody down
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, the public hearing is now concluded. Commissioners, thoughts, comments, what course of action would you like to take?
Well, I'm very familiar with it out there, and, yeah, it is a lot of money, but I know, after 10 o'clock when that tower closes, you come in there and you got your eyes outside the windshield and you're turning the lights on or off, and it's a big safety issue. I mean, sooner or later, there's going to be a runway incursion or there's going to be worst scenario midair. I have to do it in the name of safety. I do think it is a lot of money for a couple acres. But, and I do understand how you got to condemn it to get clean title. I understand that part. But, there could be a bad thing happen. I'm surprised, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, if I remember correctly, at least since I've been on the airport board. I think we got to do something, I think, to get control of that.
If we would make a motion, what's the appropriate language? Is it correct as written in our brief? Or is there an addition that's suggested?
Did we ask,
What's that?
did we ask if there was any public opposition?
Is the
Commissioner
motion as
Klein opened it up to the public hearing. You can vote today, or you can take it under advisement. There is a proposed ordinance. I may like to make a few changes to it. I could bring that back at a later date for formal adoption, but it sounds like there's a consensus to move forward. And
Commissioner, you okay with some of the language changes and commences?
Would we be able to get a copy of the appraisal so we can see their methodology and just, I think the safety needs to be paramount and it's important for the airport. I think the value that was placed on that just seems extraordinary.
Just for the record, there are multiple appraisals.
Could we see however many appraisals we have? Could we see each?
Certainly.
I feel that maybe should have been part of the package as well, just so we know the backup. We see the backup to what's on our document here stating an appraisal of $1.6 million.
Okay, we want to bring it back with some language changes and the appraisals. Is that correct? Everybody okay?
I'm okay with moving forward by consensus with the ordinance.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay.
And still look at the appraisals.
All right, I'm okay with moving forward too, but we still would want to come back and see those appraisals. Okay? Consensus is 3-2 to move forward. Mr.
I'm not okay to move forward without seeing the other information.
3-2 move forward, Terry, Randy, and myself. Thank you.
No, I'm okay moving forward
Oh,
as
okay,
well.
okay, I misunderstood you, but you want that information.
There won't be a final vote until we see the appraisals anyway.
Yeah, that's right, we're
Yeah,
moving
I'm okay with
forward.
moving
Oh,
forward.
well,
Yeah, that's,
if we
okay,
still
that's
have an
amended.
opportunity to vote, then.
Yeah, based on that information coming back into some of the language changes, yours.
you are not adopting the ordinance today, but
Okay.
we'll bring it back for formal action at the next meeting.
All right, there we go. 5-0 consensus, bring it back with additional information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, community organization funding, service priority areas. Please come forward, Susan, introduce yourself and the matter.
Good morning. Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. I'm here this morning to discuss the community organization funding, service priority areas, and eligible expenses for fiscal year 2024. The Community Organization Funding Committee is preparing for the fiscal year 2024 application and review process, and as agreed upon, the Board of County Commissioners shall annually determine and approve service priority areas eligible to receive funding consideration. The board will also set or approve the total amount of available funding that should be dedicated to each established service priority area. Historically, the board has funded 6 service priority areas, which are arts and cultural, domestic violence, families and children, recreation, seniors, and other. These service priority areas have encompassed and included all applications received and have not excluded any organization from making application for funding. For the purposes of the committee's fiscal year 2024 consideration, Washington County's interim chief financial officer has indicated $1 million is available for distribution. This amount represents an increase of $226,000 over FY23. This total is subject to adjustment as the fiscal year 2024 budget is discussed. It is a recommendation of the county's interim CFO and myself that the amount of funding made available for each respective service priority be set as indicated in the table below, which is arts and culture, excuse me, $113,200, domestic violence, $322,245, families and children, $412,305, recreation, $28,350, seniors, $113,610, and other $10,290. As previously agreed upon by the board, the committee does have the latitude to move 20% of the approved amounts from one service priority area to another each year, but every year that amount will reset back to the original figure set by the board. Also, on August 31st of 2021, last year, the board voted to allow the inclusion of capital expenses as eligible costs funded through the community organization funding in FY23. This inclusion did not have an adverse impact upon the program and provided increased flexibility for applicants. Therefore, it is recommended that the grant continue to fund both capital and operating expenses. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Susan, did we, last year when we finally approved allowing capital expenditures from the COF, did we set a fund limit? Like, was it just?
There was no limits.
We let the committee decide
Yes.
how much to allocate towards
Right.
capital versus operating
Right.
expenses? Okay, good.
Commissioners, any other questions? If not, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A first and a second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Next on the agenda, Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, Rachel Souders. Please come forward, introduce the matter. Thank you, Susan.
Good morning, Rachel Souders, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management. I'm here today because the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services has awarded the Washington County Local Management Board a total of $866,202 for its FY23 programs and county administrative expenses. So the reason I'm here is because this total is $205,099 higher than the amount that the Board of County Commissioners originally approved on March 8th of 2022. The Office of Grant Management, on behalf of and at the direction of the Local Management Board, submitted a community partnership agreement proposal to the Governor's Office in response of their notice of funding availability, and the Commissioners had approved submission of the proposal for $661,103 in your March 8th meeting. On June 10th, the Governor's Office awarded the LMB $810,266 for FY23. And then on June 29th, the Governor's Office sent notice that there would be a one-time supplemental allocation of $55,936 to Washington County. So the LMB will receive a total of $866,202 from the Governor's Office, and the funding will be allocated among the 6 approved programs and county administrative expenses to oversee the programs. So just need approval to accept the higher amount than you guys originally approved.
And that's a good thing.
Motion to accept that amount.
Is there a second?
Is this going to offset then what we?
First, I have a motion. I need a second, then your question, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now, Commissioner Burkett, please continue.
Sorry about that. Is
That's
that,
okay.
is this going to be a savings then on what we had budgeted for that program?
No, it gives us additional funding so that we can do more within those programs.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, child support enforcement. Rachel?
Rachel Souter, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management. The Washington County Sheriff's Office is requesting approval to submit an application to renew the cooperative agreement between the Department of Human Services Child Support Administration and the Board of County Commissioners to reimburse the costs of child support enforcement services provided by the Sheriff's Office. The application is requesting a total amount of $307,369, which will reimburse the salaries and fringe of 2 full-time deputies and provide partial reimbursement of 2 part-time deputies, 2 senior office associates, and a portion of equipment during the 1-year period. All grant funds are dedicated to duties associated with serving warrants and summonses issued by the court for child support enforcement.
Questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, 5-0. Next up, contract award, Juvenile Diversion Program. Brandy, Rachel, please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Brandy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department. Rachel Souter, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
The recommendation I have for you this morning is the contract award PUR 1566 Juvenile Diversion Program for Washington County. Move to award the contract for Juvenile Diversion Program in Washington County to the responsive proposal submitted by Potomac Case Management of Hagerstown, Maryland, in the amount of $111,819. The purpose of the service to be provided is to fulfill the requirements of the county's Community Partnership Agreement for fiscal year 2023 with the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. These services are to be performed during the contract period that commences upon contract execution and ends June 30, 2023. The Office of Grants Management has the option to renew up to 2 consecutive 1-year periods. The RFP was advertised in a local newspaper, on the county's website, and eMaryland Marketplace website. 25 companies downloaded the document, and 4 firms were present at the pre-proposal meeting. Funding is available in this office, in the Office of Grant Management account in the amount of $111,819.
Usually they give a bid breakdown. Did nobody else submit a bid, or?
Well, it should be in your, you mean everybody's proposal numbers?
Yeah.
So they're not revealed because it's an RFP.
Okay.
Commissioner, comments, thoughts? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Next up, sole source procurement. Brandy, welcome back. Is Josh around, or is anybody?
Josh,
I heard the door, welcome. Folks, please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Brandy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department.
Joshua Neal, Division Director of Information Systems.
This recommendation is for a sole source procurement PUR 1573 for Inform Server, a solution server for the Division of Emergency Services. Move to authorize a sole source procurement for the Inform Solution Server for the use at the Division of Emergency Services in the amount of $439,002 from NICE out of Hoboken, New Jersey, based on their proposal dated April 15, 2022. On May 2nd, 2022, the Office of Community Grant Management was granted permission by the board to submit a grant application to the Maryland 911 Board in the amount of $439,002 for the server. DES wishes to apply sections 1 through 106.2A1 and 2 of the Code of Local Public Laws of Washington County for this procurement. These sections state that a sole source procurement is authorized when permissible when only one source exists that meets the county's requirements, and 2, the compatibility of the equipment, accessories, or replacement is paramount to the consideration. The new server will host the Informed Solution supporting playback and preservation of all audio recordings at various locations within the county's 911 center and IP radio loggers. This request requires 4 of 5 commissioners to proceed with the sole source procurement. Funds are available in the amount of $439,002 and the grant GRT 150.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
Motion to approve the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, additional funding request for the Highway Department. Mr. Curry, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Curry, Purchasing.
Zane Rao, Deputy Director of Highways.
Subject is additional funding request for Highway Department. Recommended motion, request additional funding amount of $47,776 for the Highway Department to purchase 4 new Mack chassis cab trucks with dump bodies. It talks about how the board could use reserve funds and surplus and reduce the amount to the department. On August 10th of 2021, this board did approve the 4 dump truck purchase in the amount of $877,976. After the order was placed, the department received information from the upfitter J&J Body that the price for raw materials has increased. Basically, if the trucks, dump bodies are not outfitted on the trucks, then the trucks will not be of use to the department. You'll have chassis and cabs without dump bodies, without having been in use of those trucks. Any questions?
So you need an additional funding of $47,000.
Correct. $776.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have first and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, surplus Fy22. Kelsey, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kelsey Mace, Interim Chief Financial Officer. And this morning I'm bringing back the Fy22 surplus for discussion. So during the August 16th meeting, staff had brought forward recommendations on 2 potential uses for the Fy22 surplus. Today I've brought back these recommendations, but into 2 categories. Those listed in Category A are being recommended for decision today. Those in Category B can be decided on today or can be set aside for discussion at a later date. Just what I need today for projects in Category A are items that need addressed immediately. For the Northern Avenue Bridge, I know that is something that I think Scott wants to get out to bid here within the next few weeks. Basil Boulevard, that project had a loan from the Department of Commerce budgeted, but I will need to know if we're going to do reserves for that so that I can do cleanup for FY22 year end. The same for the pension operating and capital reserves. I need to know which fund we're going to put surplus in, whether we're keeping it in the general fund or putting it into the capital fund so that we can finish our year-end audit work.
Kelsey, when it comes to the pension, were you able to get some numbers for us as to what an additional $5 million contribution would bring our pension funding level up to?
Yes, so the $5 million would get us an additional 2%.
From where to where?
It's a preliminary number because the actuary is still reviewing, but our funding percentage for fiscal year 22 is going to be at 58.92%, which is a drop from the 68% last year, mostly because of the market conditions with our investments.
So the additional $5 million would bring us up
Just like 60%.
to 60. Okay.
And the reason it dropped was market condition.
Yeah,
Right,
we had
so-
a lot of losses in our investments.
Yeah, so I mean, as you recall, this board put a significant amount of money into the pension last year, and it raised it up from, it was in the lower 50s, and it went all the way up to 68. And with the market conditions, it came back down to 58. Now, we hope that's going to rebound. That's
my next question. Do you have a crystal ball and be able to tell us?
I
it's
do
gonna go
not.
up?
So, I've sort of felt a little rushed on this, but obviously you need Northern Avenue done. Obviously, it makes sense to pay a loan, not to pay, you'll pay it before you take the loan,
Right,
basically.
instead of doing the loan, Kendall can decline the loan.
Pension, we had started at 3 million, now we're at 5 million. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it, it's just,
And if you want to change the amount,
I
do it
guess
as
my biggest
amended.
concern is, if you heard me say it a million times, I want to make sure in operating somewhere there's money for EMS, because we haven't heard that plan yet. We know that. We know we got to have money for that.
So that,
And there's been a lot of requests for money. I mean, you've heard Commission on Aging was here today. There's a whole string of people who want money. Community-free clinics, a big deal right now. They're operating off a loan. And there's a lot of people that need the money. So I guess I want to be more cautious with keeping some money back. I don't know if that's general fund or where it goes. That's just me talking. I don't know what the rest of the commissioners, but I think we need to have, I know what seems like a lot of money there, but there's a lot of people that want money and a lot of projects.
Well, Randy, I'm with you on that, and I thought something we did last year was we set a certain amount aside for some nonprofit use. And so my question would be why we couldn't do some of that. Initially, when I was, and it was just me speaking, I was saying, if we could put 10 million in reserve, and you have 11 million, so to me, that would be $1 million. We were initially talking 3 million towards the pension. Could we take a little bit from there? And all these round numbers on the right, and I know you're saying these are all preliminary, plus, if I remember right, you told us that there may be another $1 million or $2 million coming in still surplus. So it would be nice to see us kind of set a fund aside for nonprofit use. I was doing some quick figuring in the beginning, and if we took $30,000 from each of these items that you mentioned, we could deal with the Meals on Wheels. And I know people are getting tired of me hear me say Meals on Wheels, but I think it's an important program to feed people. But I don't see anything on here to say. I also don't see anything on here. You mentioned EMS. Don't see anything on here for maybe getting done some things at the public safety facility. So
I think what you're hearing is, at least to me, is I want money set back for, I don't know how we do it. That's y'all's job. But for nonprofits, because we got a lot of requests going on. And I think we have to make sure we have money for EMS as a priority, any kind of first responder.
so those amounts we can wrap up in the operating reserve. So right now it's at 5 million, but those kind of items that you would want to draw out in the 23 budget for some of these things could come from that. If you do not want to decide or appropriate anything in category B right now, that whole 16.8 million can just go into the capital fund and just be held there, and you can appropriate those at a later date.
So you could specifically, you take the operating reserves, you could say we're going to put a set aside, and we don't know exactly what the number is going to be, $1 million or $2 million for EMS and $1 million to $2 million for a nonprofit fund for us to look at. Because you're right, you mentioned Commission on Aging this morning. I think it was over 500,000. Community Free Clinic has sent a letter in. I think they were hoping for 350,000. So there's a number of those organizations, and I'm gathering a list right now so I can.
Community Action Council also feeds people. They have a request in.
So yes, you could, she has it for operating reserve, but I mean, this board could say, we're gonna put, 2 million in that fund, or we're gonna put, or earmark it for that.
can we pull out and make a line item for that so that it's kind of like an official, this is earmarked for.
For a nonprofit,
Yes.
You make that part of your motion.
I think we could.
Yeah, I think, this is just me, we need to make some decisions on our nonprofits. So if we set aside $1.5 to $2 million, we need to make sure that that's utilized in 2 weeks.
Yeah, some of these, the need is immediate.
Yes.
For some of these groups that they're asking.
Right, so just to clarify, so Category A and Category B, these are just, Category A were things that we needed to move on fairly quickly. And she went through those, Northern Avenue Bridge, Basil Boulevard. I think most of you know this already, and I think you mentioned it last week. But, so this was part of the whole Basil Road, or Basil Boulevard project that the state was going to loan us $2 million. Now they're talking about, they're providing us documents to loan those funds to us. And we thought, instead of borrowing money from them and paying it back, that we may want to do it here. The pension, we've already talked about, the operating reserve and capital reserve, to put money in those reserves for the commissioners to do what they wanted to do. So, and the rest of it would fall into some category. And you mentioned about the audit too, right? So we're in the middle of.
Right, so what I need today is if the Northern Avenue Bridge, Basil Boulevard, and pension, if we could have a decision on those amounts so that we can make the pension payment and include it in 22 expenses and set aside for those projects.
I'd be fine on that if everybody wanted $5 million to continue to go into the pension.
Everything else can be split between operating reserve and capital reserve, and I can come back with recommendations and more feedback later to appropriate those funds.
Can we do, just redo this list as operating reserve, $4 million, capital reserve, $5 million, and nonprofit, $2 million?
Well, I think we don't even have to tell her how to, we can make those recommendations when we make our final votes. This is just me, Charlie. But we do need to set aside right now an amount of money for nonprofits.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we need to do that and make a decision the next 2 weeks.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I know I want to support the Meals on Wheels. I want to get that moving forward. They're kind of immediate. Community Action Council.
They have immediate needs right now too, as well.
Community Free Clinic.
Yeah, they need it.
Ollie Place.
So that's what I was saying. If we take $1 million from operating, $1 million from capital, and we turn that into nonprofit, that's $2 million for that. Doesn't mean it's going to all get used, but at least it's there, and it can.
We can change if needed.
And when you're done, I'm going to go on another question separate, so go ahead and finish that.
Does it matter if you take, what Mr. Berg is talking about, $1 million out of each one, or should we just take that out of operating? And do you have a suggestion?
I was just trying to be fair to your numbers, that's all.
That's up to the board.
Okay, all right.
So just so we're clear, if I could ask a question, Kelsey, of Category A, you need an answer sooner rather than later on the first three items, the bridge,
Right.
Wazel Boulevard, pension.
Okay.
For the rest of it, I just need to know, are we keeping it in general fund balance, or are we putting it into the capital fund reserve? Not to be allocated, but just to be held back in either fund so that we can finish up our audit work.
So if we did $2 million for nonprofits, that would likely.
That would fall into
come
the
out of the
general fund balance, and we would draw it back
There you
out
go.
in '23.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want an answer on your biggest deal is the top three, just so Commissioner Keefe.
Right, and then just what we're putting in operating versus what we're putting in
Can we do a
capital.
voter consensus on those first three right now to clear that?
$2 million.
Oh, and, well, for the three projects, and then the $2 million could be a second.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Somebody make a motion for first three projects to be.
I motion the first three projects, Northern Avenue Bridge, Visa Boulevard, and Pension I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now let's return to the $2 million to be.
When it comes for the nonprofits, I'd like to go on the record that I support the funding needed for the Commission on Aging and Meals on Wheels program. And so if that amount does end up being $2 million, I would like to see, I have that dollar amount right here, $518,553 allocated to that program of whatever amount we decide to give to nonprofits.
I'm not going to support an exact amount for any group, because if you give that amount, you give Community Action Council, you give the Community Free Clinic, we're well over $1 million. And I think we all should be taking the time to let the public know that everybody has a fair shot to make that request to us. I don't want the impression that we're picking favorites. We should be able to announce that we have a pot of money
I
for
agree with
others. Yeah, so that's all I'm asking for that. So there may be other groups listening that may have that opportunity. That's all I'm asking.
But I would just commend those organizations that have approached us so far, telling us what their needs are.
But I'm not going to commit to any dollar amount to any one group.
But we will within the next 2 weeks.
Yes, it's got to be done, because I know some of these Community Free Clinic, their mental health program, the Meals on Wheels, I'm on the board for Community Action Council. They need groceries right now for people. Matter of fact, I have a personal friend just got groceries from Community Action Council, so.
Just out of curiosity, do they go through the Maryland Food Bank?
I don't know, and that's why I was wanted to ask about all the other questions. Do the Meals on Wheels people also get food bank? Do they overlap with the Community Action Council? I mean.
I ask that because right now, we just partnered, our church partnered with the Maryland Food Bank, and right
So
now,
there's
anybody that's partnered with that gets
connected
free.
with them, because you run
food.
one food bank, right?
Huh?
You run a food bank.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll get you in front of them, but I'm not going to commit to any dollar amount to any one group.
I think we all agree that Community Free Clinic, Commission on Aging, and a couple of the other organizations are going to be deserving. I sent a elderly person to both of them this week, and they both were right on top of it within 10 hours. And so they all do a real good job. Let's just field it just for, and maybe next meeting we can make our allotments, who it's going to, but I don't want to make that decision today.
Can we agree it's $2 million?
Yes, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You want that as a motion to be in there, staff? Okay, a motion to designate $2 million, so I hear a motion for
You look at
that?
that list on the right, though.
And nonprofit status?
I'd be happy with increasing it and telling them to decrease what's on.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I don't think $2 million is going to be enough.
I agree with Randy. I think if we look at these projects that were pushed up on the right, we could increase that by $1 million or
Let's
two.
phrase it up to 3 million. Doesn't commit to
good with
3
that.
million, say up to. Somebody want to make a motion for that?
Motion to reserve $3 million.
Up to 3 million.
Up to $3 million for nonprofits.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye for that.
Aye.
I vote. And you need to continue?
Yes. So are there any other projects listed here that you want to commit to today?
What's really critical on that category B? What's critical? What have you been hearing?
911 radio system?
Like how, we have, again, EMS isn't there yet, so we got to make sure we don't forget
Right,
about
so
that.
the EMS would fall under what we leave in the operating reserve, because the majority of that's going to be wages and benefits.
You got some stuff that looks important, highway equipment, you got police vehicles. I don't know how bad these roofs are.
Oh, if Scott or Andrew or Alan would like to come up and
I don't
make
know.
their case.
It'd be nice to know if there is something in there that it's going to be really bad if we don't get it done.
Wasn't these P25 communication
Andrew, please.
upgrade, wasn't that?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's the towers.
No,
Andrew,
that
please
could be
introduce
something.
yourself.
So the
please.
commissioner did put a significant amount of money into that last year, and our latest estimate is we're going to need another $2 million for that.
Yeah.
Which
Now, I know
pro-
but
So
we're
that
working
is-
with the consultant. Is that awarded?
Yeah, so that was awarded for the consultant to design that radio project.
So that would be something that we definitely need.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need that. I think we're definitely going to need that.
So gentlemen, please
Sure.
introduce
Andrew
yourself.
Eshelman, Director of Public Works. I would say generally, what we would look to do with that funding is kind of draw down over the years, because we have a backlog of projects. And so the other issue is how much can we actually get done in the here and now. On the building side, I have a list of about $8 million of projects. So there are needs out there, but I also want you to be aware that if we fund $3 million, whatever the amount is, it's not like that amount's going to go out the next year, but just forecasting out in the future. We realize those accounts, because they're funded with general funds, are normally the first location that we go to for reductions. So there is a need there, but again, it's almost like we're trying to build up those reserves. So needs that happen, we have funds there to cover those costs. I do think it's also equally important on the operating side. I know in Public Works, we have employees that are probably most affected by the rise in minimum wage that's going to be affecting us. So I know there could be future needs there that we might want to consider.
Question.
I think part of these projects are when we looked at future budgets, some of these projects we had pushed out further or made some reductions during this past budget season.
Right.
So part of these projects are to put that money back, so they weren't pushed out so far that they were brought in closer to us. So
my question would be, when you do this budgeting for these projects, are we factoring in the economy, the inflation? is it 20% now? Our projects might be over earlier projections, or some that's dropped back down. What's your thoughts on that? How
I
do you
would
budget
say
for that?
yes and no. I mean, each year, we reevaluate what the budgets are. Scott does a lot of work for his projects as well. And so you generally try to factor in what the present value cost is, because we do a 10-year budget, and so sometimes it's hard to predict what that's gonna look like out in the future. So on the large projects, I know we definitely take a closer look at those. And on the smaller ones, we're not adjusting everyone and say, well, this $50,000 project's gonna be 60. We sometimes try to work through that. But yes, it's a factor that we need to consider, and we're all trying to anticipate how much inflation is gonna affect us long-term in terms of the project costs.
I think the question that I haven't had answered yet was, on that category B, we seem like fairly well took care of category A, is, and we don't have to know today, maybe when we come back for the honor thing in 2 weeks, is what is really immediate. I mean, like Sergeant Matheny sitting here, is it police vehicles, is it Zane, is it highway equipment, or Andrew? I mean, something that is roofs leaking everywhere, we need to put a roof on.
On the roof side, I have at least 3 roof projects that I know if we went and did all of those in the next year, we would not have enough funding for. We just approved $1.1 million for the building out at Ico Way. And so we wouldn't have enough to proceed with those projects. The same way with building systemics, we have some needs that could be high dollar amounts. But, you know, again, I go back to the other issue, which is we give the funding, you know, it also takes a while to work through those projects, having the staffing to get them out.
And just to follow up on your question, it's a good question. I think that the reason we sort of split these up today is because we needed to address these ones in category A. We understand the category B, and what you're asking for is some more detailed information about, like, it doesn't need to be done today, but what's immediate over the next 6 to 8, 10 months that you want to look at. So we can, and that's what we were thinking, that we'd come back and talk about more specifics with these other ones. And the other thing, just a question about, do we look at inflation? You know, we start putting the budget together, all these departments put budgets together starting in the fall. So even though we were looking at that, I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that anybody anticipated that inflation would be where it is today. So the projects that we have planned for FY23, we anticipate that a lot of those are going to cost more than what we thought they were going to cost. So whether it's equipment or projects. So some of this money we're putting aside is so the commissioners can do the projects that we think we should do this year.
So we recognize if Sergeant Matheny needs $1 million for vehicle, he probably needs somewhere around $1 million for vehicles.
Right.
And if you need X amount of dollars for highway equipment, 1.4 million, you're trying to hit that somewhere.
Right. I mean, and you just heard right before this, the cost increase that was added on after vehicles were ordered. I know for transit vehicles, now they're grant funded, but the buses that we just ordered, if we ordered those same buses now, they're gonna cost $50,000 more a piece. So that kind of gets extrapolated across all the areas where we're needing to make purchases.
That's where we are with the police cars. We're looking at a $13,500 increase in each car, between the car cost and the upfitting materials.
So that's one of the reasons we were suggesting, as you were suggesting, you know, put money aside in reserve so we can, when those costs come up, the district board will be able to continue and we'll be able to buy those vehicles and do those things that are, you know, imperative to our operations.
So none of the projects on that list are necessarily new projects because we didn't want to add on to what we already have, but we kind of want to make sure that the needs that we currently have, like the vehicles, like the buildings, those kind of things, that as we come to present those bid awards, that we have money set aside, because I would expect in the next year that would be a more common occurrence to say, we have this project on the books, we originally thought it was going to be X, and now it's going to be that plus whatever the additional amount is.
Right. And our payment maintenance, it goes without saying, I mean, we always use more money for that, and that cost continues to go up, so.
So why wouldn't you leave those in the operating reserve or capital reserve? Why wouldn't you put like school construction in capital reserve? Why does it have to be separated out? I'm just curious. I mean, I understand police vehicles. I see that as maybe an immediate need. I see P25 as an immediate need. But these other ones that you're talking about of the what-ifs, why wouldn't you just leave those in capital reserve?
And that can be your decision.
It can be. I'll just say
This
for
was just a
school,
list of recommendations to start the conversation.
I would just say for school construction, obviously, the school board, when they look at whether they're going to build a new school or not, and they're looking at an elementary school right now. I mean, this board put $4 million aside last year specifically for that construction of a new school. So what we're talking about is putting another $2 million in that fund towards the building of a new school.
Now,
Because if they're going to build if they decide to build a new elementary school, and I think that's the plan, it'll be significantly funded by the state of Maryland, but
Yeah,
there will
there's
be
a match
cost.
for what we put up, right? And there are match
Correct.
from the
And so
state.
there's two sides. So one would be the projects that you already have the books that come in and say, we finished, we're at the finish line, here's what it's gonna cost, versus saying, here's the seed money. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's roughly around, a third, let's say, is local money by the time it's all said and done, and the rest comes in as state. We wouldn't want them undertaking a school project, multi-million dollars, and then come at the end and say, county, we need $3 million out of your contingency fund to do this project. It's more or less a seed saying, here's $6 million as local funds, as a seed, to start the next school construction project.
Right, so you could put it in capital, you could put it in the capital reserve, but, I think it was our suggestion last year, and then this board did that, put $4 million aside.
So there's
and
a
earmarked it for
line
that.
item that says reserve for school budget.
It would go to the capital budget.
For
Yeah, there's
capital
a
budget,
separate project that has
really
that 4
intended
million sitting in
for
it,
a
just
new- for a
waiting.
new school. And so if the Board of County Commissioners would agree to this, there'd be $6 million of seed money in there. So when they come forward with that, there'll still probably be another couple million that we're gonna have to come up
That
with.
$6 million would leverage how much from the state?
Scott, do you remember the exact percentage?
On a school.
Yeah, there's some odd number. It's
Okay,
like
that's all right,
23, but it only covers certain things and not
Okay,
design
but
costs.
it
By the time
helps.
it's all
It
said and
helps by
done,
putting-
figure a
Yeah.
third is local.
So you could put all that in capital
Yeah,
reserve,
so
but
like
it's just,
12.
we like to put that aside for that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, there is a formula. I don't remember if it's 23 point something, but there's only some things that are eligible for
There
it.
was a ratio, it was like 79-20.
There was
Yeah,
70,
that's what I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah, there was
remember.
7129, and then there was a 2179, and I'm not sure where we're at right now.
But again, it covers only eligible things. So if you want to build a larger gym or certain design costs, by the time it's all said and done, equipment, it drops it down lower.
Let me say that, I understand Charlie's point of view, and I was kind of on the same page there, where we have many capital projects that aren't specifically defined yet. So why not just put that into one category for large capital projects or shortcomings on capital projects that we're building now? I'm in support of allocating additional funding to school construction. I'm fine, we need that. I saw the headline in today's newspaper. I do have a concern that we gave the Board of Ed $1.8 million for Cascade Elementary School and Hancock Elementary School because their staff was saying we need to close those schools because the buildings are in poor condition. They haven't spent that money yet to update those schools. So I want to personally be wise about, we've already been presented with some repairs that need done at the schools. I need to see that money spent. It's still sitting in our savings account as far as I know. Is that correct?
Right, it hasn't been requested at my last communications with them because it is bond funded. So there's an expiration date on when those funds can be used, and I have been assured that they would be used in time.
Okay. If you could follow up, maybe that's a topic for a separate discussion, but those monies haven't been used. It's been sitting there for well over a year now. That's important. That was important to those communities, important to me, and I think all of us took a stand on that. We were unanimous, so.
Okay. I have a kind of a parallel related question, if that makes sense. You mentioned we would pay that $2 million for that road instead of borrowing the $2 million.
Right.
Correct? Is there any credibility into maybe paying down some of this surplus, paying down our debt, paying off some loans earlier to release those interest payments that would free up our budget for money in the future, that we would save money by not having a 10, 20-year interest payment? Has that been considered, or is there something there that would apply or not in your thoughts?
My thoughts would be maybe use, if you wanted to reduce debt, maybe use some of this money to not issue bonds in the future. maybe not so much pay off debt service that we have, but reduce our bond issuance going
So
forward.
what's our pay-go balance? I thought that's what pay-go was for. So what's our pay-go balance? So we used to have a pay-go
What's in the
fund where we kept money in there so that we could use that money to pay for projects so we wouldn't have to borrow money.
Right, we could pay for projects using pay-go funds and not having to borrow money. I'll tell you that our bond counsel and us, we are always looking to see whether we should refinance debt and whether we should do that. So that's a continuing process. So I'm not sure, and I'll defer to all of you to make that decision, but I think that to take some of this money, it's probably not enough for us to do that, to pay down debt that would make a significant difference, based on the interest rates that we've been getting recently. So, but I will assure you that we are always looking to refinance debt if we can, to get a lower interest rate if we can. So,
Good try.
but it's something we can look into
Okay,
further.
that's
if you
fine.
want
I
to.
just
So
wanted
do
to
you know
know.
what our pay-go balance is?
In the 23 budget, I think we put in a little over 4 million. In the actual set-aside reserve, I think there's around 20.
Is there a certain percentage that we want to keep in that reserve, right?
This would be the capital reserve, so this would be all the project savings and other year-end transfers that have happened over the years from savings. It's not the operating
the
reserve
operating
that
reserve,
requires the 17%.
Right.
So we do have a pretty healthy balance in the pay-go budget. or,
Yes.
Account.
And we did maintain our AA bond ratings based on some of those statistics and percents. All right, where are we at? What else do you need?
I just have one last thing to kind of look at here, the general vehicle. And this is kind of where when I start thinking of surplus, instead of just getting all that money and spend, in the last budget cycle, we approved money for general vehicle, which, first of all, since the sheriff's sitting here, in case anybody ever heard that I was wanting to, or not the sheriff, I'm sorry.
Promoted him. Good.
Well, Brian Albert's gonna be mad, and so is that other guy running.
I thought the weight of the world on what
Yeah, I was going to say.
I never made a comment that the sheriff should not be taking their vehicle home. So just a public service announcement there. But in general, when we were doing the budget, we already allowed for certain purchases of vehicles. And so here we are, we're being given again $500,000, which, by the way, would feed 80 people, $500,000 for general vehicles. This isn't the sheriff's vehicles. This is general vehicles. I mean, why are we, setting money aside for a project like that when we already budgeted for that money for those vehicles?
Is that future?
So that was based on the amount that we reduced the project in years 24 through 30 during the capital process. So the thought is if we put the money in from reserves now, we wouldn't increase those budgets in the next round for those out years. We would keep them at the same level that they are right now.
See, but if we hadn't have received this much surplus, we wouldn't have it. We would be doing what we're doing already done. We would be doing what we've already done. You see my point? It seems like, anyway.
But in future years, in '24, we may not have had the money to buy all those vehicles that we may need.
Everybody here gets the same information I get on where this county's headed, and we are headed in a good way. Now, it doesn't mean, I just think that, and we all just got an email about a vehicle being misused. Anyway, 500,000 for general vehicles. What kind of general vehicles are we talking?
But that's not, is that all in 1 year? Is that in their budget over time? That's what he's trying to get at. Is
So
this
24 to 30, right?
24?
Where the amount came from.
Where the amount came from.
IT replacement, what's involved in that? Is that an immediate need, or is that something we can put off? I mean, just in the 16 months I've been on this board, we've allocated extra money to IT a number of times. So are we just doing what you're saying? Did we offset future years by putting this money in there?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, I just don't, as a business owner, that's just not how I would have done it. And I know the government definitely runs slower and different, anyway.
All right, what else do you need? Thank you, Mr. Burkett. What else do you need from us?
At this point, if there was any of these projects that you did want to do now, if you don't, that's fine. For what's left over here outside of the 3 million for nonprofits, it would be how much you want to keep in the operating fund versus how much you want to set aside in the capital. So if you want to set me a minimum for the operating reserve and we can put the rest in the capital fund, that's enough for me today to finish up our audit.
And then all those future decisions will be made by this board.
Right, and then
future
any
reports.
allocation of any of those reserves would come back in front of you in the form of a budget adjustment at the time to appropriate.
So can we do 4 million operating, 4 million capital, 3 million general for nonprofit? Is that what you're asking for? Did you want to know how much?
The motion was
Well,
2 million.
so the 3
I thought
million,
we changed it to 3.
It was 3 million.
Was it up to 3?
Up to 3,
Up to 3,
Up to 3.
right, so your 3 million for nonprofit, so out, beyond the 3 million, how much more do you want to put in the operating? Do you want to keep 5 million in there, 7 million? I just need a number of what we want to keep in the
Well,
operating.
that would mean taking from over here and moving over.
And that's
Is that-
fine, and then we can come back with the capital appropriations at a later date.
You could make it simple, you could move it all over and we could,
That's what I was thinking.
we could,
So
right?
from your category B list, you could take all of that money, move it into the operating reserve, capital reserve,
Okay,
and then,
I
I'm
think-
just talking, and then draw off of it as needed.
that's fine.
And then do we need to add more to pay-go?
Well, that would be then part of the 24 budget cycle. If you want to add more to pay-go using these reserves, at that time, we would incorporate it into the budget process.
I also think the easy answer would be move your capital contingency over to capital and maybe general vehicles. I think that would be the easy answer. And then go ahead and improve your P25 and your police vehicles. That's just my thought. That would be, just move your capital contingency over. And that would fix your 3 million surplus, or I mean, nonprofit.
Kelsey, is there anything in category B that would not be classified as a capital project?
No, that would all be in the capital. These would all have a capital project number.
Okay. So
Already.
what we have already approved of this $35 million, this first 3 items in category A, that's the Northern Avenue Bridge, $150,000, Basil Boulevard, $2 million, pension, $5 million, and $3 million nonprofits.
Yeah, correct. So I just would need to know what's left, what we want to put in operating versus what we want to put in capital, and then further discussions can be had at a later
And
date.
someone who also works in accounting, I appreciate your urgency to want to get a number for operating reserve so that you can go on with your audit.
Right.
How much money is, 5 million is what you have laid out? Is that sufficient? Or are we saying the 3 million that we allocated towards nonprofit needs to come out of that $5 million amount?
It wouldn't have to. If you want to keep the operating reserve in a, separate from the nonprofit, we can make it 5 million.
Okay, so we can take 35 million, I'm not gonna do the math here, but deduct 150,000, 2 million, 5 million, 3 million, and 5 million for the operating reserve. And then what remains, we can call capital contingency and not rush to,
Right,
you know,
it would-
fund a project that we don't know 100% certain if it's the highest priority on a list. But all of the other projects are capital related, so it has to go in the capital budget somewhere. We're just going to fine tune later what program in the capital budget we want to fund, right?
Right, it'll go into the capital reserve, so it wouldn't be budgeted in any particular project. It would just be moved into our Fund 30.
Okay. Gentlemen, I think we take our time. $35 million is a lot of money. I want to make sure we're funding the best projects. I want to make sure that those projects that have the highest need.
I agree 100%, but the only question I have, if you put it into the capital reserve, it's just probably a crazy question, but we can move it over to operating, right?
Yes. Yes, anything that's moved into the capital fund, if it's not appropriated to a particular project, and even if it was, at any time, the board through action can move it back into operating.
Right, there's the answer.
Yep, I'm good with that.
There's the answer.
Okay, so we're gonna do the, in addition to what was the 150, 2 million, and 5 million, 3 million that's approved, we're gonna keep 5 in the operating and move everything else into capital.
Okay, that's like 15,150,000, is that right? Is anybody doing the math?
Yeah, however it comes out.
16.
Okay. Now, do you want a motion on that as consensus okay?
Real
for that?
quick, did you want to go ahead and approve police vehicles in the P25, 2 million and 1 million?
I would appreciate you looking at that because of the urgency of trying to get vehicles and equipment ordered.
Okay, then motion, I'm fine with it. Motion to approve those two items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Do we also need, we haven't formally approved 5 million in the operating reserve, have we?
That's what we're doing
We
now.
formally
You can add-
approved the first 3 plus 3 million for nonprofit.
And then,
Yep. Yeah, so if you want to do the 2 million for the P25, the 1 million for police vehicles, 5 million for operating reserve, and then the remaining balance is capital reserve.
There you go.
That'll give me enough to finish what I
Mr.
need
Wagner,
to
is
do
that
on
okay
the
to amend your
ledger.
motion to?
Motion to approve.
To amend that?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, first and second with the amended version of the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There you go, thank you very much. Anything else?
Anybody write that down?
I got it.
Replay the video.
So if my understanding is correct, so staff, we can look at these numbers, I mean, staff could come back and make requests, because some of these things, I'm sure staff is gonna be interested in pushing forward with some requests.
That's
So,
what I want to see next, priorities.
priorities, so that's what
Yeah, we'll get to the
we need
next
to do.
level. I mean, like, for example, I mean, here's my list that I referenced for building projects. So if you want to see the detail, we have the backup.
So we can
But
do that.
today, we don't really want to go down to that level.
I'd say we'll come down to that level, we'll come back in and talk to the commissioners about that, and then they can take money out of those reserves and fund those projects that they wanna fund.
All right, motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Favor, say aye. Aye, closed session.
Sure, I understand it. Wait, Kelsey.